Hi, welcome back. Today's a little bit different. I'm making salami, so I thought I'd show you how I do it because it's really easy and very cheap to make, especially when you compare it to the price of commercial salami. It is really does work out astronomically cheaper, really does. The recipe I'm going to be using comes with the casings that I buy from Umai Dry, and as well as the casings they also send you several recipes. The one I prefer is called soppressata. For me it's that classic salami taste, and I really enjoy it. So what I thought I'd do is I'd read through the recipe, and if you want to try this at home yourself you can just jot down the weights and measurements, uh, and give it a go. It doesn't take long, it's about a 20-minute job, and that will give you 1 kilogram's worth of salami, which works out in the UK for about £5, which when you consider it costs you about 30 or £40 for a kilogram of commercial salami, it's a huge saving. Right, so first thing on the list is pork shoulder. I don't use pork shoulder, I never have. It's got to be minced, so either you'd buy it and mince it yourself or ask your butcher to mince it. But I'm thinking, well, if you're going to mince it, just buy pork mince from the supermarket, which is what I do. £2.50 for 500 grams. So I bought two of these, that's the £5. And I just use this and it's worked perfect every time. So just pick up a kilogram of pork mince from your supermarket, and that's your meat. Now added to that, obviously you're going to have some salts for curing and some spices for flavour. And so I add to the pork 30 grams or 3% the weight of the meat in salt. I use Mediterranean sea salt, finely ground. I don't use the crystals or the flakes, but you could use any salt. They do recommend though you don't use salt that has anti-caking agents added to it, and there's a reason for that which I'll get to later. So to the salt I've added a teaspoon of black pepper finely ground. I've added half a teaspoon of red pepper flakes, 1 teaspoon of whole black peppercorns, which you can probably see in there, half a teaspoon of, I'm using mild chili powder, but you could use medium or hot, and half a teaspoon of garlic powder as well. Also I'm using, but this is optional, half a teaspoon of Instacure number 2, also called Prague powder number 2 or pink salt. That just adds to it adds an extra layer of protection for the meat, and it also helps with curing. I'm also using, and this is optional, 2 teaspoons of dextrose, which is corn sugar or brewing sugar, and I've got loads of that because I'm a home brewer, and I'm using it because I'm adding to this mixture a culture. This is called Back to Firm TSPX. There's lots of different cultures you can buy for making salami. A very popular one is called Flavour of Italy, I understand. But I use the one that came with the casings, the Umai Dry casings. And basically this will give a little bit of a tanginess to the salami. You know that salami tanginess? It comes from basically fermentation. So this is 2 tablespoons of dechlorinated water, which is a posh way to say it's boiled water that you've let cool down to room temperature. I'm actually using bottled spring water, 2 tablespoons, and to that you add 1/8 of a teaspoon of the culture. And this is what the culture looks like. It's just a powder, and it's 1/8 of a teaspoon of that dissolved in 2 tablespoons of water, and you add this right at the end before you stuff the sausages. So that's all the ingredients I'm using. The Instacure number 2 The culture, that they're optional, you don't need them, but I like to use them for the added protection and also that nice tangy salami flavour. Right, let me put all these together, all these ingredients together, and I'll come back and I'll show you how I stuff the salami casings. But just before I go, just a little tip: if you do make this, try and chill, not freeze, but try and chill the mince so that it keeps its shape longer when it's in the mixing bowl, and that will help you evenly distribute the salt and the spices. If it becomes too mushy too soon, and it will become mushy because of the warmth of your hands as you're mixing it through, you could end up with some areas with a lot of salt and spices and some areas with virtually none. So to get an even distribution, it's helpful if you chill the mince down so that it holds its shape for longer as you're mixing through all the ingredients. And another tip, because this does get quite messy, is maybe use some food safe gloves. Okay, I'm going to throw all this together and I'll get back to you afterwards. Some people actually use paddles and they will, I forgot to put my gloves on. Some people use paddles and they'll even put the paddles in the freezer and get them really cold as well, just to stop the meat from mushing up too quickly. And finally, we add the cure. And this is where it does start to get sticky, because straight away that cure is going to start reacting with the dextrose, and it's going to really start to stiffen up the meat. This is where you want to actually now squeeze it and mush it all up. And they say it's ready when it gets really sticky like it is now, when you can just take a piece, roll it into a ball. That's a bit too big, just a small little ball, whack it onto your hand, and it stays there for a few seconds before it drops off. When that happens, it's ready for stuffing. I'll just give it a few more for good measure, a few more squeezes, give that a go again, and there it is. That's perfect. Okay, I'll show you how I stuff this. Okay, so here we are with my window box, because I'm sanitizing what's called a jerky gun, which is basically just a little pump action gun with a nozzle, with a chamber that holds the meat and a nozzle at one end that pumps the meat through into the casings. Now the eagle-eyed of you may notice, or the DIY people out there may notice, this is like a decorator's corking gun, and sure enough it basically is, except for one very important difference. This is food grade plastic. Don't use a decorator's corking gun, especially if you're using the culture, because those salts and that culture, you don't know how it may react with the plastic. So, you know, just make sure that you take sensible precautions. So this is it's called a Kitchener, and it's a jerky shooter, jerky gun, and you just stuff the meat into this chamber. You screw it on here, you screw the nozzle on this side, and you just pump it through, and that's it. So let me start stuffing these sausages. What I'll be stuffing them in is the Umai dry casing. It comes as a big long tube. It's 7 centimeters in diameter, and you just tie them with some zip ties that they also send you. At one end you stuff it through the other end, and you just tie them off here as well, and that makes your sausages. And usually I get about 4 sausages, 3 or 4 sausages from a kilogram of pork. So let's get started. So there it is, it's all been stuffed. And what I like to do is just hold my fingers at the end here and just pump until the meat goes right to the end. Oops, and some of it will squeeze out, that's okay. And this is just to help remove any air pockets that's in this tube. Then you just take, this is the fun bit, you just take the bag and you just slide it over the end of the nozzle, and then just go all the way down to the bottom, and are we ready? You just squeeze the trigger and out will pop a sausage. Here we go. You put a little bit of pressure on this hand here that's holding the casing, and that also will help to stop any air bubbles. There it is, and then I'll just trim that off, trim this bit of the zip tie off, and that's it. There's your first sausage. I've got about 4 more of these to do, so I better get cracking. So I've got 3 sausages, each one weighing about 330 give or take grams, and now I'm just going to hang these up for 3 days in the kitchen or somewhere warm. And then what will happen is, if you look at them now, that they're like a pasty sort of colour, beigey sort of colour. They'll turn much darker, and depending on the temperature, how well they ferment, they could even go a nice deep red colour. So that's it. It's as easy as that. It takes about 20 minutes to make salami for £5. Oh, and the little bit for the casings as well. You don't have to use these special Umai dry casings. You can use traditional casings which your butcher may sell, but I like the jerky gun. Instead of actually buying one of those big stainless steel stuffers, just use a jerky gun. So there you go, that's how I make salami. After 3 days they'll go in the fridge for about 4 weeks, until they've lost 60 to 70%, sorry, 30 to 40% of their weight, and then they're ready for eating. So in a month's time, I'm eating salami again. Well, after all that hard work, which it's not, I thought I deserve a beer. Just before I leave you though, I just thought I'd point out a couple of things if you are going to try this yourself, and it is easy. When you hang them to cure, and in my case also to ferment, make sure they don't touch each other. And also when you put them into the fridge, make sure they're on a rack so that there's air circulation all the way around them and they're not touching each other again. And that's all you've got to do. And I've never had a bad salami. So that's how I make salami. Hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed watching the video and seeing just how easy it is. Like I said, for about £5 and maybe a couple of other pounds for, you know, the different spices and the casings and so on, it's a really great alternative to buying commercial salami, because for a kilogram of commercial salami you could be paying in the UK £30–40. So it's a massive saving if you like salami. It takes about 20 minutes to half an hour, that's all. So well worth it. Oh, one more point, and I know I don't have to say this, but wash everything thoroughly afterwards. If you're using a jerky gun, wash it out. If you know you're mixing bowl, because at the end of the day it is raw meat, so make sure everything's clean. That's why even before I start using that jerky gun, I make sure it's all sanitized in the window box, so it's everything's spotless. So just those points to bear in mind, but it's very, very easy to do. Okay, well, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's been a bit different. This is a bit more usual. I'm actually going to be reviewing this soon. It's not homebrew. It's a German beer called Hofmeister, and there's a story behind this beer. So I thought I'd do a review for it. But that's coming up at a later date. But thanks for watching. It's been a pleasure as always, and I'll see you again in the next video.